Here we are. We are live. Welcome to the very first of many different live podcasts. I'm going to set myself up here on Zoom and record us. Let's talk about Unhinged. Let's talk about the reason that we're here today. So, first of all, hi. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Ellie. My name is Ellie McMillan. I am a business coach who focuses on spirituality and business, and how we can weave things like magic and business together. And then I am also a trained priestess. Hi, everyone. Who is from the 13 Moon lineage. And one of these things, one of the best parts about this is just the depth that the lineage brings to understanding ourselves. And so that's who I am. The Unhinged podcast came about because actually we're in eclipse season, baby. We're here for whatever the eclipse is here to dish us. And a friend of mine sent me a message and said, can you just send me a voice note? I don't care what you say. I just need I need to know what's going on in your life, whatever the wisdom is of the day. And I was like, oh, that's kind of broad, but okay. Like, give me a pulpit and a microphone. And then another friend of mine asked me a question that we're going to talk about here today. And she sent me a message back with a picture of her notes that she had taken from our conversation. And I was a little taken aback I was like, you make notes from this? And it's true. There's just so much richness in this dialogue of voice notes that we send to each other. And so I kind of wanted to create this podcast with the feeling of sending your bestie a personal podcast. The last couple of days I've asked one of my best friends to rate and review this podcast. And it's been really fun to just have a rating of our personal voice notes. Hi, Hallie. How are you? And so I have a couple of questions that people have asked on my stories that I want to dive into. And then if you have a question and you're on here live, you're welcome to ask a question in the comment box. And if you're joining, say hi, because I like to, make this a bit of a two-way street. It just feels kind of weird sometimes when you're staring at a screen being like, okay, these are the things we're going to talk about. So, first things first. Where are we coming from? Let's drop in. Let's start with the original question, the question that started Unhinged all from the very beginning. A friend of mine and a dear former business coach said to me, I can ask you anything any of the darkest secrets or issues that I might have, I can come to you and ask the question and you won't even flinch. And I was thinking, actually what just popped into my mind was this really hilarious story that one day, because this is Unhinged, one day I will tell on the podcast about a gay man and a sexual preference on a first date. Let's leave it hanging for that. But from all of this to come together, I thought this is the year of increasing our capacity. And I've been talking about this with a couple of my clients about increasing our capacity for fame. A regular podcast coming on this exact thing, but increasing our capacity for fame, increasing our capacity for love, for money, for more customers, for more people in our life. It's actually a set point. We have a set point, and the set point itself sometimes is really low. And for us to increase this capacity, we have to get out of that set point to then be in a new stage, baby. And so Unhinged is here. First question. Hi Kyla. Hi everyone. What happens when I don't feel aligned with my bestie anymore, or there's jealousy issues or trust issues? So somebody came to me and asked the question of, what happens when I've had this friend for so long, like since we've been in high school, since we've been in grade school, and this moment has come where I feel like they're picking away at me. There's some jealousy, there's some like displaced jealousy. I don't know. Let me know if you've ever had a friend of yours who's been like, I'm just really concerned about your whatever it is that you're doing. The amount of times that you're going to the gym, about your dating, about your eating, about anything, literally anything. And actually it just becomes like a projection from them to you. And so what happens with when we start to develop our spiritual practices, when we deepen our spiritual practices, I used to talk about this in terms of when I taught yoga teachers how to teach. One of the things that came up the quickest was that when you step on the path to any sort of kind of spiritual practice, any sort of personal development, there's always going to be a friend who's concerned for you because you've changed. And yeah, you have. And so this comes up a lot with yoga teachers who are doing their training because they now have a different lens that they can see the world through. And if you're having an issue with your bestie around like feeling the sisterhood wound of jealousy, feeling the sisterhood wound of competition, feeling like you are being tracked with all of your actions, that you're no longer free and in flow with your best friend because there's this judgment that's coming. It's often because you have a new lens on life, on the world, that your friend doesn't have. And this happened big time. Also, my love, if you're watching this, hi, I love you. This happened big time in my relationship with my love. What ended up happening is that I started priestess training a couple of years ago, and she had not yet stepped on any sort of spiritual path. And when I stepped on it, I was like, you can't hold me down. No holding me back right now. And I was going through so much expansion. Speaking of increasing your capacity, I was going through so much expansion that it was like she was pulling the reins on me to try to keep me back. And it felt like this constant push and pull of trying to be who I was. And if you've ever had this experience of like being split with your family, I was talking to another friend who like runs a spiritual business, and she's like, I have the hardest time embodying that spiritual side around my family because there are so many things that I feel I can't talk to them about. And so for my friend who left this question around what to do, I said to her, there's a few things. We can bless and release. If we really think that this is something that is like irreconcilable. Is this a word? Maybe I just pronounced it wrong. Anyways, we're going with it. It's unhinged. You can't reconcile, let's put it this way, the differences that you have because you feel that your friend doesn't understand you, then this may be a bless and release situation. This also may be a recoherence in your relationship, in your friendship. And my love and I struggled for probably 18 months with this real power struggle between me having a new look on life, and her literally saying things to me like, well, who are you, just some high priestess? And I was like, yes, I am. And no, fuck off. Like, no. And it's hard when we make that like literal, like ethereal jump into a new spiritual discovery, that it feels that friction is really, really apparent. So, number 1, bless and release. Number 2, recohere. Invite them into your world. Invite them into what's happening for you. And oftentimes, especially with best friends, what I've noticed is that the language that you now have doesn't make sense to you. It absolutely makes sense to you. Doesn't necessarily make sense to your friend. And you're coming here as an emissary, as a representative of this new you. And yet it sometimes takes some re-education for who they are. You have to be like, oh, I got here because of this. And so if that feels like that's the best for you, recoherence, it's just a matter of putting in the work for you and them to recohere in your relationship. So that feels good. That feels complete. Let me think. I wrote some notes. Who am I? Making notes about things. Oh, let's talk about compassion. We're in it. We're in the need for compassion in this world right now. Oh, damn, that's good coffee. Okay. The need for compassion is that you also have to have some compassion towards yourself, because what happens in these moments is that when the finger gets pointed at you, you're like, oh no. And you start to come out of this increased capacity that you've had for yourself. And you start to question things like, is this really true? I remember one time, the first time my love asked me if my school was a cult, I was like, I don't know, for you it could be. For me, it's just school, you know? Like, the things that are the darkest secrets for ourselves, if somebody was to, like, point a finger at it, like, would we be devastated? Oh, this gets into a bigger conversation of, like, subjectivity versus objectivity. One of the biggest lessons last year for me was moving from the black and white, the dichotomy of this or that, or to objectivity of both and. And so the answer of that I gave my love of, like, is this a cult? Like, yeah, maybe it is to you. It's not to me. You know, maybe it is to somebody who feels that, you know, any sort of organized spirituality is cult-like. I mean, this is a bigger conversation. Let's put cults on the agenda for next time. But having compassion for yourself in feeling so jammed up and so, like, just distraught around somebody calling you on something. Oh, this is a much bigger conversation. Okay, we're gonna put this in our hat for a longer conversation in more episodes. But having the compassion for them of, like, oh, sweet child, like, of course you feel this disconnection from me. This is the sacred mother wound. It's like when the mom pulls away from the child, there's this that happens the first time the mom pulls away from the child, and we remember that. And every time this happens to us we become like our sensors go out, that any little, even if we had an emotionally regulated childhood, and like, good for you if you had that. I had a great future episodes, but you have this pull, and that separation is so painful. And until we know how to come back from the separation, then we live in that pain. And this is essentially what's happened between friendships, where we no longer have, okay, Kayla's in the house. Kayla is the person we have to thank for Unhinged. She's the one that was like, leave me a voicey, and here we are. So shout out, thank you, Kayla. So we're just talking about this separation, and the separation for ourselves to be able to recognize this in our friendship is such a beautiful thing. And we also, in moving from this, like, I'm answering my own, or I'm asking my own question for next time of subjectivity and objectivity. When we move from the subjectivity of like, you're doing this to me, into objectivity of like, what's going on here? What's actually happening here? What's actually, what's the real problem? I used to say to one of my loves, like, what's the real problem here? Like, can we just get down? It's not the dishes. What's the real problem? So yeah, that's when it comes to having compassion for yourself, having compassion for the other people, and really letting yourself ride that icky feeling. Oh, this is a good one. Finding ways, like my kink, if you will, is finding all of the ways that I love to run. That I'm just like, I run, and this is classic intimacy avoidant. I run from the things that I want the most. And my kink is to watch myself try to run, and then to call myself back in, like from my higher self, to call myself back in and be like, okay, I see you spending, this hour plus, don't look at my stats, on Instagram, just scrolling blindly because you needed inspiration to post. Fuck, can't be real. Be real with that. It's fine. You wanted an hour to just fucking veg out. Great, do that. Don't say it's for inspiration though. Okay, big questions. If you're joining, hi, yeah, please, Kayla, if you have a question, please ask a question. And I have a couple more questions that I'm going to answer. And I'd like to go for like, maybe, let's see if we can get this to, I don't know, an hour. Let's see if we can only do it for an hour. Mom is a little long-winded, if you know what I mean. Okay. The question that more than one of you, I feel like I want to save this one for a whole on its own. But we're going to go to, we're going to go to cervical orgasms. We're just going to go straight in. We're going straight there. Okay, so some of you asked that I was recently on a podcast. If you don't follow Almost to, oh my gosh, Brie, what's your podcast? Almost to, we're looking this up live, people. Honest. Okay, if you are not listening to the Almost Too Honest podcast with my friend Brie, I did one of the episodes with her talking about me coming out of the closet and how everyone else in my life was like, you're gay, and I'm like, oh, but I don't think so. Like, are we sure? And I also talked about this concept this practice and concept of the cervical orgasm, which I feel like I have been literally preaching cervical orgasms for. I have been. I'm like, besides Kim and Nami, I'm the number 2 fan. Kim and Nami is the number 1 fan. I'm the number 2, and I mistakenly, blessedly, had a cervical orgasm when I was like 20. And at that point forward, I never wanted anything else ever again. Oh, Kayla, I'm going to come back to this one. I think that it's great. We were just talking about this as well. So, cervical orgasms. Here's what happened. Let's look at the practice and the theory of Kim and Nami. So Kim and Nami, if you don't know, is an educator and the number 1 fan of cervical orgasms. We have 3 different, as women, we have 3 different kinds of orgasms. We have clitoral, we have G-spot, and we have cervical. And the cervical orgasm, the question that was asked is how I would love to hear a description of the difference between clitoral and cervical in a felt sense and how to achieve it. So Kim and Nami has a great course, And she talks about, in the course, she talks about how to achieve the cervical orgasm. We're gonna go into my portion of this though. Now I'm gonna stay in my lane here. Well, never ever, but the cervical orgasm is called the God orgasm. This is like my first bit of spirituality as somebody who grew up in an agnostic household was a cervical orgasm. Oh my God, everything is fucking spiritual. Everything's fucking business. Here we go, people. Hang on tight. A cervical orgasm feels nothing like a clitoral orgasm. The majority of people who are having orgasms are having clitoral. Some of you are having a lot of you are having G-spot. Not nearly enough of you are having cervical. What happens with the cervical orgasm, actually, kind of some interesting history here. Let's come back. During the period of hysteria, where women had moved from like being in their divine feminine essence into the Industrial Revolution, really, working, being, on a schedule, on time, men being away from the house more and more, longer periods of time, like strictly from a historical and biological standpoint, men going on longer hunts. There was this whole epidemic, and I don't know if you watched the movie. I can't remember the name of the movie. This is like also, I never remember any names of any actors really, and the names of movies or apparently podcasts, don't ask. So this movie is about the hysteria that happened, and the what the fucking answer to it was is that you would go to the doctor, and the doctor would massage your uterus, would massage your cervical opening actually, and it would bring you to a peak, and from there the treatment was over. And you would come back every week or couple of days to get treated again. And the doctor who did this, his hand and arm got so sore that he invented the first sex machine. Now, this was a very rudimentary, if you look this up, it was like made out of wood, and it was like a crank or something. And essentially it was a wooden dildo. And so cervical, and like we went hard from like friendship right into cervical stuff, and this is the essence of what Unhinged is. And so the way to achieve a cervical or a uterus orgasm is to massage, so to speak, the entrance of the cervix. Kim Anami says that the best way to do this is doggy style, and I disagree. I don't know if I've ever had one doggy style. Probably not. I disagree. But the reason doggy style is just strictly from a biological, physiological, physical sense of access to the entrance of the cervix. And so how you can achieve this, let's talk about this part. How you can achieve this is you can also achieve it by, we're like going in, being on top. That is my favorite way. And being on top allows you to control the depth of penetration. Okay? And what happens with, this is my personal description of what happens. Also, Mom, if you're watching this, hi, I love you. You raised me well. You told me to speak my mind, and here we are. So the response in my body is that I can feel it coming like a mile away. I'm like, oh, it's happening. It's starting. It's also something that women can do in succession over and over and over again. So the peak or the orgasm itself, it can last from like 1 to 3 to 30 minutes. I read a story about a woman who was like epic with how long she could continue the I guess hitting the sweet spot to be able to continue to peak, which is just like, that's my goal. That's my goal for this year, is a 30-minute. And so the sensation is completely different because the clitoral orgasm is very outward and very like, it's like down and out is the sensation of a cervical orgasm. Of a clitoral orgasm. A cervical orgasm is like this combustion. It's like everything comes in and then everything goes straight up. And so I used to describe this as like, it was like a marching band coming in. You could feel the marching band coming in, and then the we're just using very plain language here. And then the rest of it I would describe like popcorn in an air popping device, for that matter. And so when you're trying to achieve, this is like, we're going to talk about this so much more, most likely, because the questions that we get now that we know a little bit, we're like, oh, and it seems really mysterious because this is the missing link. Anybody, my belief, anybody, anywhere, any old time can have a clitoral orgasm. Ain't no thing. You literally can like achieve that for a lot, for anybody. It can be very simple to achieve. The reason that we have a hard time with it, with a clitoral orgasm, also hi Clodagh, welcome, you came at a great time, with a clitoral orgasm, is because what happens is that we have restriction, emotional restriction in the body. And so that emotional restriction could be that we don't fully feel open with our partner or with ourselves. We don't fully feel in trust with our partner. The missing link for a cervical orgasm is you have to be in full trust. You have to be in full connection with your partner. You have to be fully open, really, to the universe. And then that's whenever it happens and it becomes a spiritual awakening. Really, it becomes a spiritual awakening. So, not calling, you did, Claudia, you came in at a great time. Not calling anybody out if you have or have not had cervical orgasms, but if you have more questions about these things, because I think that we need to go back to a question that Kayla asked about friendships and spirituality, and then we need to go to a business question that I have. So if you're on here live and you have questions, pop them in the chat. If you're coming on, come say hi. Okay, Kayla asked, I have someone who I'm not aligned with at all, but we've been friends for so long. It's hard to cut off the energy. It feels abrupt, awkward, and like we can't let this fade, but I know it's not healthy. Okay, so Kayla's really asking like a deepening of the question that I answered earlier, and I think this is the next phase. This is like the diversion of bless and release and the diversion of recohere. In the bless and release, if this feels like you're like, okay, I'm no longer here for the friendship, it needs to be a direct conversation with them. And we can't just let things fizzle out. I mean, if you're lucky enough, something will fizzle out, but like that energy is still out in the open. And when the energy is still out in the open, it's so hard to not be entangled in it. Like we need to cut those cords. And that could be like, listen, this just doesn't feel aligned anymore. Like we've had such a good time. We've been such great friends, but whatever is happening, my life is taking a very different direction. But we don't want to do that work because a few things. Because one, it's hard. Like it's a challenge to do that. And it's a challenge to have a really hard conversation. And if we're talking about this is all about increasing our capacity. We're increasing the capacity for letting more into our life, because this one friendship, or it could be multiples, is really hindering my ability to be friends with people that are really aligned with me. Like this is taking up way too much of my time and energy. And anytime, like, let's say they text, there's an abrasiveness that happens. We're just like, oh, not them again, or whatever. Or we find ourselves spinning our wheels, trying to come up with some sort of excuse that they're going to take. Because, sometimes friends, especially ones that know us that long, they're like, oh, well, like, we know what's best for you. You know, after you do that, and you're just like, no, after I do that, I'm cooked for the day. After I do that, I don't have any more energy. I don't want to go travel here, there, and anywhere, because I just don't have the energy for that. What you don't have the energy for is them. And so I find that you can't let it fade. There's no way. Yeah, Kayla, you have always wanted a personal podcast. It's hindering your ability to stay steady with true energy. This is it. You gotta cut the fucking cord, people. There's no use in like pussyfooting around it when we know, like, how many people have like stayed in a relationship, even like a lover relationship. Also, the other thing, this is just going to turn into like a heated rivalry. Anybody on here listened to or watched Heated Rivalry like 1 trillion times, like I have yet? But we can't just let it fade out, because it's still, this is what happens with individuals. Let's talk about this as a spiritual concept of cord cutting. We have hooks that people put in us. Yesterday, I had a hook put in me. This man, I went to the coffee shop in the morning, and I was like, oh, I forgot my water bottle on the way to the gym. Inconvenient. There's a coffee shop right here. I'm just going to go have a coffee to get hydrated. And I was sitting there, and there was this man behind. My back was towards like where you put your cream and your sugar and your coffee. And I heard this woman say, you could just say, excuse me. And he said, well, you should know that you shouldn't be standing in the way. And I was like, are they friends? And they're being really like sarcastic with each other? And then I turned around, and they were not friends. They didn't know each other. And he had shoved her out of the way because he was too close to where he needed to get his fucking coffee mix, stevia, probably. No hate for stevia, but we'll talk about stevia another day. And I thought, I still am thinking about this. It's like, listen, pal, this is not how we treat women. This is not how we treat women. And for us to shove someone out of the way because they are in... Wolves would have raised you way better, actually. Were you raised by I don't know who? And so this is a hook, and I have to cut this hook. Either we have to learn our lesson, we have to cut the hook, or those are probably our only 2 options, actually. And so the learning of the lesson is like, okay, this is now integrated in my body. This is now how I feel about when, someone treats a woman in this way. This is not how we do this. Lesson learned. But I now have a cord that I have to, he was raised by the patriarchy, he is fucking right. I now have to cut this cord with this man that I don't even know and maybe won't see again. Actually, this morning at the gym, I was like, is that you? He wasn't, he was not dressed in gym clothes yesterday. He was dressed in not gym clothes. But there was a man who had a similar beard and hairstyle to him, and I was like, I spent the whole time talking to the guy next to him. I was like, this is my fucking alone time, people. Okay, so yeah, cut the fucking cord. Let's do a little ceremony. Let's cut the cord. Let's get this energy away from you, because I know you personally, and I know this situation, and I know that it's dragging you down, my friend. Yesterday, one of my friends on here, Clodagh, is calling me Ellie Moon, but yesterday I'm filling out an application for my ordination, and one of the questions is like, do I have a spiritual or a sacred name? And I literally was like, Moonbeam. Like, is my name Moonbeam now? Oh my gosh. Imagine, she was like, oh my gosh, a Moonbeam? You're totally a Moonbeam. And then I was like, imagine if people called me Moon? Oh my gosh, my friends, I want to know, if you had a sacred name, what would your sacred name be? And last night when I went to bed, I was like, okay, there's so much that happens in our sleep. And I was like, setting the intention, bring me my spiritual name, bring me my sacred name for my ordination process. Like, I am ready to receive. It's probably still Moonbeam. Let's be real. It's Moonbeam. Just I was one. I tested it out with a couple of friends yesterday. I was like, okay, a friend of mine has called me Cupcake. Oh, let's talk about this. Come into this world about how I got called Cupcake. When I first moved to Vancouver, this is, if you're not from Vancouver and if you don't know East Van queers, they are a very special and sacred to my heart type of individual. And I went to, this is so good. This is like, we're unhinged. I went to a friend of mine, my best friend out here, invited me to a polyamorous potluck. And I was 20, and sure I was polyamorous. And I was like, a potluck full of queer babes? Like there's no option to say no. This is just what you do. And so we get there. Oh my gosh, we get there. And one of I hope this finds them somehow. Hugs naked. I hope this finds you. Hi, my name is Ellie. I met you 20 some years ago at Milo's house in Trout Lake. And I'm still blushing. And every now and again, I catch a glimpse of you on the internet. Actually, I don't. But my same best friend sends me either screenshots of you or posts that are public because fucking East Van queers love a goddamn closed profile. And I met you, and your name is maybe your name on your birth certificate is something like Amanda or Sophie. I don't know, but everybody calls you Hugs. And on the internet, your name is please do not share this with her or whatever. Is Hugs Naked. And I thought to myself, I left that potluck in love with so many people, and I was like, obviously polyamorous. And I also left it going like, I can call myself whatever I want. And so I decided I was going to call myself Cupcake. And my best friend has called me Cupcake, and my former wife called me Cupcake for 13 years because I was like, I am Cupcake. And then when we split up, there was a misprint in a newspaper in a small town that I lived in. Shout out to Perth, Ontario. There was a misprint in a paper that was like, or like on a, you know, those Facebook pages that are like from yesteryear. And it was like a picture of a bunch of people from town. And one of the names of the people was Gay Fox. And I had never had such name envy in my life. I have always wanted to be called Ellie. Like, Ellie is a great name. It means like beam of light. Let's be real. And I saw the name Gay Fox and was like, well, we have a new identity now. I am now called Gay Fox. And so the worst part is that I put it on like my first apartment, like the buzz number was Gay Fox. Really horrible for like getting packages delivered because they're looking for an Ellie, you know? And so I used Gay Fox for a long time and for like the last 4 years. But then now the sacred name. Come on, Moonbeam. I don't know. I'm into it. Let me know. Let me know what you think. Okay. Last question so far. Hi, Lizzie. If you have any questions in the chat, pop them in. We're going to talk about somebody. Okay, we're not done from. Okay, fine. We're not done from the sex and sensuality category yet. Someone asked me how to rebuild a sexual relationship with a partner when it feels like a chore. Okay. The story of my wife and I pausing our sex life for 18 months needs to be probably its own full multi-podcast. But I want to speak from the perspective of blame and shame, and let's put a little healthy dose of some sex magic in here, actually. So if anybody else is struggling with this or has gone through like, you know, this dry spell, actually you may not know this, but in queer relationships there's something called lesbian bed death. and it happens often. And so let's speak to this first from the perspective of sex magic. Sex magic is the highest form of magic. It's gold. We have black, white, red, and then gold magic. This is gold magic. And this level of magic, when we call this in, when we're doing sex magic, what we're calling in is a balance of forces. Any magic is just a balance of forces. Any spell is just an intention. And so when we're looking at rekindling with a lover of ours, what ends up happening is that we have a lot of often resentments, in the way of our intimacy. And those resentments come over time. It's like the number one resentment probably in relationships is the partner, and we're not pointing fingers at men because we love them, but it's often when the more masculine or the masculine partner is breaking promises. What this does, and the promises can be very small. It could be things like not taking out the trash when they said they would. It could be like, if I was to give dudes advice for like how to have more sex with their partners, it would be to do all of the chores that either they have agreed to or that is in their wheelhouse, or that they've been asked to do, when, like, in a timely manner. We're not talking about like jumping up immediately after dinner and doing dishes, although that's a good time to do it. But if you say you're going to do something and the dishes, like you say you're going to do the dishes and the dishes are still in the sink the next morning, that doesn't make women want to open their legs. And I know I'm speaking to women specifically right now. You know, most of the people on my people in my audience are like 98% women. Thanks, ladies. And so what happens with partners that we've sort of fallen out of lust for is that we have experienced a series of missteps, a series of like tiny little breaks, ruptures in the trust. And if I don't trust that you will do the dishes after just anything arbitrary, if I don't trust that you'll take the garbage out whenever it's garbage day, then I very subconsciously don't trust that you will be able to care for me in a way that I can be fully enraptured with you. And now, like, this is also a bigger conversation around this whole piece around, like, in a lot of hetero relationships, the over serving of men versus women, and like sexually, and what that looks like. You know, a lot of times you see people who want to, you know, oral sex for one of the genders is more dominant than others. And there's also this, you know, this period of time where women are bleeding. And so if there's any sort of ick that comes from that, I can't imagine it, but second, like, why aren't you just taking care of your love during this very tender time in their cycle? So when we come back to sex magic for a second, what happens is that we grow into the mundane. And so we get into the everyday. And the everyday, we lose tension. All good sexes, like if we think back to the beginnings of our relationship, or if you're having good sex right now, all it is, if we take everything away from it and we strip it down, it's tension that is built. And we can create tension by not doing shit. This is very subconscious of men especially, of not doing shit and then getting in trouble. This is such a fucking mommy kink right here. You get in trouble and then you get that little hit of satisfaction. But what they don't realize is that getting in trouble like that, or like having a partner that is like, let's say, bossy or anything like that, them getting in trouble is thinking that it's building the tension that is needed for sexual attraction. But for women, what it's doing, or people in female energy, is that it's giving them a fucking mommy complex. And they're like, I'm not your goddamn mother. Do your fucking shit. Okay? So to rebuild the relationship that you have with your love in terms of sex, when it feels like a chore, the thing to discover is how to rebuild tension in your life and how to relieve resentments. Damn. Like we just need like a relationship book that is like how to build tension and how to relieve resentments. Relieving resentments is the same thing as like we talked about with our friends that we feel we may be drifting apart, is having to actually have difficult conversations with them to say, when this happens, this is how I feel. But the key is for the other person to be able to receive it. And often if we are in a place, like we have been in a place where we have not been able to receive any sort of feedback, we've not been able to receive any sort of what feels like criticism. A good example is that I went into the kitchen, I was working a little bit late last night, I went to the kitchen, my love was using like a delicate utensil to break up something that was frozen. And I was like, oh, we have something for that. And immediately they were like, I can't even choose the utensil. And I was like, whoa, I was just being, in my perspective, was trying to be helpful. You have autonomy here. You can use whatever utensil you want. I was merely coming in to provide help that you didn't ask for. Yeah, you didn't ask for that. And afterwards, this is a tension of building repair and rupture and repair. This is my friend Clodagh, who was on here. This is what she talks about. And she taught me this lesson, and it's so integrated of like, we sometimes create ruptures to repair unconsciously. And we sometimes have ruptures, and the need is to repair, to be able to come back together. And so what I would say for this, the person that talked about or asked about building a sexual relationship again with a partner that feels like a chore, is to really take a look at the resentments in your life with your partner. Like, take a hard fucking look. Not the ones that you're like, this is also what happens. So we're like, well, it's fine. It'll be fine. Girl, it's not fucking fine. It's not fine even a little bit. So take a look at the resentments in your life, and then take a look at the places that the resentments are happening, let's say, for example, or take a look at the places where it feels like you also have a part in those resentments. Like me coming in and giving advice to somebody who didn't ask for it. The worst. And then I would say, as part of the repair, start to work on those ruptures to come back together. The spoiler alert for like the cheat code for what happened with my love and I is two things. We introduced something called the we, in quotations, the we, which I will talk about. It's a spiritual concept. Well, I mean, it's very simple, but it's a spiritual concept that we brought into a relationship, but that's for the regular podcast. I'll do a whole episode on that. We introduced the concept of the we into our relationship. And so we were able to step out of ego from like, well, you said, well, you did, and into, okay, so we're actually on the same team here. And if we're on the same team and we're not fighting against each other, how do we come to the solution? And by doing that, I had to admit that the reason that it felt laborious to be intimate with my partner was because I had put up a bunch of walls, and they were just trying to break them down in any way they could. And I am very thankful that they stuck with it, that they continued to chip away, because when I had the realization of like, I was like, it's you that's doing this. It's you that isn't turning me on. Oh my gosh, like how cringe that I said those words. But any of those things. And I had to come to terms with I was about 98% of the problem at that point. Not the whole problem, but 98% of it. So, okay. I'm going to do this last question. Hi to anybody who is joined. Say hi. Let me know where you are. Let me know what's up. Okay, the last question that I have for today, unless you have any questions for me, is a business question. And the business question is around, how do I make money? How do I find my path to make money and be free from a 9-to-5? Simple. Super simple. Okay, if we strip this back, it's actually quite simple. Finding your purpose is like the catchphrase of every year of our lives. Like, we just have to find our purpose. We have to find what we're unhappy about. This actually ties into this conversation with like falling out of lust for our partners. What sex magic teaches us is that we've gotten bored. And most often, the simplest way for us to make money is the one that we are overlooking. And in overlooking this, we then overcomplicate things. And so what I would say to the person that asked me this, I would talk about finding your purpose as a way of what are people asking you to teach them about. What are people coming to you? And this is here's the black and white of it. Here's the dichotomy of this. Is like, I can be over here, especially, let's bring in a little bit of human design in here for a second. As a projector, my raison d'etre is to wait for the invitation. And if that's the case, as we spoke earlier, Kayla gave me the invitation of like, just send me a voice note. I don't care what you talk about. Just send me a voice note. And I was like, hold my matcha. So we have we have this thing as projectors, as manifesting generators and generators, you're here to respond. And so what are you responding to? 99% of the time people are manifesting, 70% of the time people are generators and manifesting generators, because they make up 70% of the population. So let's use a real stat. And so if people are asking you, you can actually start a business of response. Now, my recommendation is actually not to, it's this kind of like sistering that happens if you want to leave your 9-to-5. If you are, especially if you're a manifesting generator, and sometimes, in some cases, a manifestor. In a very small portion of cases, a manifestor, depending on what part of your cycle you're in, then I would say that you are, you can sister this. You can start a business alongside your 9-to-5. And then you basically chug-a-lug it, where you spend less time and effort in your 9-to-5, but not fucking shit up, and more time and effort in your side hustle that now can become a business. And when that starts to become a place where you're making enough money and have enough time to go towards your side hustle, you can release the energy from your 9-to-5. This is like, let's talk about the bigger picture. This is something I talk about all the time. And if you're a coaching client of mine, is like active, passive, neutral energy. So this is neutral, this is active, this is passive in the triangle. In our active, passive, neutral energy, what we're doing is that most of us have a lot of passive time that we can create in our 9-to-5. And that means what passive time is when you're in the flow. No. Neutral time is when you're in the flow. What passive time is when you're intaking something, listening to a book, having a conversation, learning something, listening to this podcast. This is called passive time. We're intaking, we're receiving. Active time is when we're outputting. So we actually, most jobs, we have like, there's the let's say, I don't even know, I don't even know what to call this. Hang on. Joke? Or like if you're a city worker, like how many city workers does it take to, I don't know, fix a pothole? If you're a government worker, like you've done your work by 10 a.m. and you spend the rest of the day just like aimlessly wandering around the office. Now, it's not always the case for every job like this, but if you have a job where you can have less active time, more neutral time, and maybe more passive time, then this input is how you spend the time learning the skill that you have to form it into a business. If you have more neutral time is, especially for business owners, neutral time is the most underutilized. Like if you are a business owner and you get nothing else from this podcast, this is the money right here. You need more neutral time in your life. Put the podcast down. Put the business book down. Put the learning a new skill down. Because what happens is that we get stuck in passive time, and we get stuck in learning. Anybody else been here? And that hinders us from output. Because what happens is that we have some identity crisis where we're like, we can't do it. I don't know enough to be able to do the thing that I already actually know how to do, which is part of the active. And so what you have to do is spend more time in neutral, in flow, folding your own laundry, not listening to anything, going for a walk, not listening to anything, not listening to dudes fucking bitch about shit at the gym. That's my neutral time. I'm in the flow of whatever I'm doing, and I don't want to hear you talk. I mean, you do you. I can block you out. It's cooking. It's going for a drive. Like the biggest downloads for me is like just going for a drive. So sometimes this is why I love driving. So what things in your life can you do that doesn't feel productive? So this isn't necessarily about like vegging out on the couch and watching. Elsa says it's changed everything for her. This is the thing. As business owners, you have to have more neutral time. Not scrolling. That's not neutral. That's not any of those things. Going to an exercise class. That can be neutral time because you're in the flow of this. Going to a yoga class. Going for a bike ride. Watching kids play or playing with your kids. Watching your animals play. Playing with your animals. Taking your dogs for a walk. As long as they're not a mouthy little chihuahua like one of mine is, and it's just a horrible time. Actually, it's so great. It's terrible. I hate it. I love it. It's more neutral time. Love him. He'll make an appearance, I'm sure, one day. So, if you were going to find your path, the easiest way to find your path is, what are people asking you all the time? People were coming to me. I was so resistant. This last year, I finally opened the doors for business coaching. People have been coming to me for business advice and business things for years. I closed my yoga studio, or I sold my yoga studio, and I felt so horrible. I gave myself a complex after closing my studio because I was like, studio failed. I had to sell it. I didn't want to be there anymore. No, studio failed because I didn't want to be there anymore. I was like, it was not a failure. And I remember a very good friend of mine asking me if I would speak about closing that chapter. And I was like, oh no, that's called failure. And she was like, it's not failure at all. And it took me years to figure that out. So number one, what are people asking you for? Mundane things. What are people asking for? People were asking me all the time about, or saying to me, I just could listen to you talk about whatever. What am I doing in business coaching? I'm pulling together the threads of business concepts and spiritual concepts and teaching them to my clients in a way that they can understand and see a bigger picture so that we don't have burnout happening. Your nervous system feels relieved because you have this aspect of spirituality, or you have this aspect of something more than just our small selves. And so what are people asking you about? how can you make that into a business? What are you really doing? These are the 3 questions that I really want you to ask yourself. What are you really doing? A hairstylist isn't really a hairstylist. They're a fucking therapist. You know, I used to date a hairstylist who then went to school for therapy. She's already doing the job. Why not? Why not just learn how to do the job? And so start with those 3 things. Start with the 3 things of like, what are people asking you for? You're probably a gen or a mani-gen. And if you're a projector, we didn't talk about this. If you're a projector, it's not, I mean, have I done it? Have I worked like 2 to 3 jobs my whole life? Absolutely. Yes, I have. Do I technically have 2 businesses right now? Absolutely. Yes, I do. But projectors, you have to be very conscious. And so if you have conscious of your time and your neutral time, because you need more neutral time than anybody else. You and manifestors, we need more neutral time. So if this is the case, you need to build in more time where like my walks or my gym time in the morning are all about letting the download happen for what needs to come out today. God, how can I serve you? And God, how can you serve me? What is it that we need to be working together on today? And that's the guiding. So yeah, use those 3 things. Build some tension for yourself, because we also fall out of love and we're like, it's not working. And when we're like, it's not working, nobody wanted it. Like, no, if they didn't want it, is it because of you? Did you not express it in a way that they can understand? Because if nobody can understand it, then they can't buy it. If they can't buy it, then you don't make any money, and you don't make any money, you can't live your 9 to 5. So it's a good way to review. The podcast this week that came out, the new season on Apple Podcasts already, is about the law of divided attention. And divided attention allows for you to see things from 2 different perspectives. So what we're doing here, we're building the subjective objective review here. And in that podcast, I talk about 3 key things that you need to be asking yourself, especially if you're a business owner, but if you're just an individual who feels like you're struggling with anything. And I would ask yourself these 3 questions after anything that you publish, after anything that you launch, after any client that you speak with, or any workshop that you deliver. So, okay. I'm looking at my question. Oh yeah. The last part about this is that in the business question, in this business aspect, let's talk about what's next for us. So next Friday, I'll see you, same place, same time. I'm going to post this on the podcast app on Apple, Spotify, shortly after this afternoon. And so it will be up if you missed the live. I'll see you on the replay. And I have a group business. So currently I have about 2 spots. I can stretch a little bit. 2 spots open for personal one-to-one coaching with me, which is a 6-month commitment. We work together. We take a look at your business, and the things that we really dig into are like why you might not be, or you are, why you're not making more money, or why you're not making enough money, about the content that you're creating and how you're creating it. What are you saying and how to say it? The programs that you're putting together. So this whole piece around how to actually put a program together that makes logical and emotional sense to people, so it takes them through a proper flow of transformation. And we also work on, in personal one-to-one, we work on things that like tuning your nervous system, because a lot of the clients that come to me, there's kind of 2 sections. The foundational business is the spot that I have 2 left for. Foundational business is like if you're in the first few years of your business, or you're not making as much money as you want to be making. And otherwise, I have a secondary coaching for women who are making $250,000 or more a year. And we work on nervous system reset. Nervous system reset is because you're probably freaking the fuck out. You have all of these responsibilities now. You've built this business, and you feel like you're hanging on by a thread. And we need to just get your nervous system pulled back in so that you can do the work that you're really here to do in the world. But this is a little like teaser, a little like, let's drop a little, I don't know, seed of intention, is that I have a group program that I think actually just needs to be launched, which is going to be essentially a spiritual business group program. So some of the things that we do in the one-to-one, but in a group aspect. So things like leads and content and getting your fucking shit together and doing your fucking job, essentially. That's going to be the marketing for it. Get your fucking shit together, do your fucking job. And all of those things are going to be packaged into a nice little, like, easy 8-week course. I don't know, something like that. It's developing. So continue to stay tuned for that. Monday, I'll see you. Monday's podcast I have scheduled, and it's talking about, it's so good. It's so good. It's about your human design. So if you don't have human design, you're watching this, you're listening to this, go ahead and check your human design. Just Google's human design, or go to Jenna Zoe, and she has a really great human design free chart that you can get. Check your profile numbers. There's 2 numbers in your profile. The first one is basically how you live your life for the first 30 years. The second number is how you live your life the rest of your life. And on the podcast on Monday, I'm going to talk about your numbers and how they relate to business and how they relate to life, really, because business is life, baby. Okay, this was so fun. Thank you so much for joining me. Come follow me if you don't follow me already on Instagram, and come follow the podcast, rate and review. Like I said at the beginning of the thing, I love reading a review. Only leave a review if it's a 5-star. Just kidding. Not really. Okay. Love you. Peace out. Bye, my friends.